Hey y'all, my name is Ann Wyatt. I started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Workforce 4.0. I'm your host, Ann Wyatt, and I am so excited to be joined this week with Mark Yahiro from RealSense AI. And Mark is in business development. Yeah? Is that right, Mark?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Heading up business development.
Yeah, at RealSense AI. And Mark, you're going to share a little bit more about AI, the convergence of technology and people, and all of the cool ideas on the future of work here in a minute. But Mark, for those that are listening today, do you want to give yourself a little bit more formal introduction?
Thanks, Ann. Pleasure to be here. Honor as well. Mark Yahiro. I started my career way back when there was a Bell Labs as an engineer, and then did startups for the next, I would say, decades or so. I was at Intel for a number of years. That's where we really incubated this RealSense kind of vision, where we could take these cameras and hopefully allow robots to see the world and be safe with humans. So that was kind of our vision, and we spun off from Intel just recently. So now we're an independent company focusing on robotics and other solutions. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Took a circuitous route to get here. Before I was an engineer, I was a wannabe artist. So hopefully I bring some of that creativity to the world. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Mark, we are all artists.
In heart, at least. Exactly.
That's right. I think there's a lot of parallels with engineering and art, and that is not a popular opinion of mine, but I do. I think you've got
No,
to
I
be
agree.
somewhat creative.
Yeah. I think musicians and artists, I see a lot of great engineers have a combination of those. Great. So
Absolutely. Well, speaking of art and the softer side of the business there, Mark, I've got to give you the Workforce 4.0 welcome officially. And I got to know, Mark, if we're out at a karaoke bar, we're doing karaoke, and we're going to do some karaoke. What is your go-to karaoke song?
that's an easy one. It's Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd. Great song, great lyrics, great guitar beginning, and just everyone can start singing it. So,
All right. I love that song. I love Pink Floyd. Do you like Pink Floyd?
oh, one of my favorite. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you play Pink Floyd?
I would love to play Pink Floyd, but yeah, I'm still learning. And if it's not singing, I'll do a really bad blues harmonica for anybody who wants to listen.
Hey, I'm here for it.
There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love Pink Floyd. Have you ever watched The Wizard of Oz to Pink Floyd? They tell me
It's
that's a thing.
yeah, what you got to yeah. I don't think they did it on purpose. So it's synchronized to a Dark Side of the Moon. I know.
Yeah, we're solving real problems on this podcast, Mark. We really
Yeah,
are.
there's no AI with that. There was some that never mind. Whoever found that, they were in a different state of mind. That's probably what happens.
Probably. Well, I love that. I love that so much. Well, when it comes to machine vision, that is really one of the top use cases for AI, I think, in our industry so far,
That's right.
because I think it's really easy to implement. But from your point of view in working and developing this product, what do you think the real value gain to having a product or like AI? Because AI is such a buzzword, right? What's the real value gain from having a product like what RealSense offers?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different aspects to it. So if you take it from I would say, robotics perspective or automation, let's look at automation in general, right? Because manufacturing is looking at how do we be more efficient, how do we optimize our operations. There's a lot of issues with supply chain, logistics, inventory management, the whole gamut, as you know. So I think the first thing is, looking at your operations, right? It's very specific for each kind of organization. So if I was running kind of factory or managing the logistics of an organization, you have to look at the true costs, right? So AI could bring a lot in terms of the back end support, but also could bring a lot in terms of using robotics as an automation tool for you, right? But then there's trade-offs, right? How much does it cost to implement? What's the actual trade-offs in terms of managing it to your back end systems, right? Does it actually integrate easily? What are the true costs in terms of the human labor and capital? And can humans work with robots, or vice versa? Can robots work with humans? So all those
Yeah.
things to play, right? So I think just looking at it as a broad brush stroke that AI is going to take over the world and everything's going to be magically work, that's not going to happen, right? So we see a lot of our customers. So what we do is we provide a foundational element to robots. So basically, it's the visual cortex. Like we use our eyes as humans to see the world, and our brain obviously processes that information, right? So I'm looking at you, you're smiling. I assume that you're kind of happy. Hopefully, you're engaged, or I'm engaged with you. So we're getting that perception, right? So we provide the visual cortex to robots to see the world and hopefully make better decisions. So that's navigation, that's looking at objects in new ways, looking at people to make sure you don't run over the people. So these are
Right.
things that we provide as a foundation. So our customers aren't the factories, our customers are the robot manufacturers or the integrators that take these great components and implement a solution, right? So if I'm like I say, going back to how AI helps, a manufacturing facility, then if I was a manager of that facility, I said, okay, I'm going to buy a service from a robot manufacturer. What is that going to do for me? Is it going to improve my efficiency? Is it going to work well with my factory workers, right? So those are things that you need to do to look at that type of solution, right? At a high level.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that there is actually, just as a little side quest conversation here, because I do think that there's a lot of folks in this space, but even still, maybe they've never been to a really super automated
Yep,
plant, right? So, a little bit of background on that and why safety is such a big deal in robotics and automation. When you go into a plant that has high automation in it,
that's
all
right.
of these robotics are industrial
That's right.
robots, right? And they don't have a lot of the collaborative applications, which is now what we're calling,
That's right. Yeah,
cobots
yeah,
for those keeping score.
yeah.
So so when you go in, and they're all in cells. So they're designed in a way because they are so big. And they typically use like the LiDAR sensors, right, around the cell. But they're so big, you can't really, there's definitely fencing there. There's a whole barrier to them. So, if you were to remove that barrier for whatever reason, then I mean that is you could get into a serious situation, right? And I don't think a lot of folks, maybe they're listening and they haven't actually seen this level of automation, but a lot of these parts are huge. Truck frames are huge.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
If you're so when you think about like the safety idea of it, then having some sort of machine vision at a human level, robots do not possess that. I don't care how cute the ones with the eyes are. Then that gives that extra level of safety where we're not quite to, okay, well, let's take the walls down, but like we're at least making it safer for people to be in the vicinity.
Yeah, I think there's different levels of requirement in terms of, I would say, walling off, potential hazards, right? So where you have, and obviously you've seen it, there's a lot of safety cages where there's very, strong, large industrial arms that are moving around major kind of components, right? And that's very potential hazardous environment. There's other areas where, if you look at warehouse logistics, where they're looking at either automated guided vehicles, which are robots, or
Uh-huh.
automated robots, which are basically self-navigating robots. Those are actually moving a lot of things like pallets around warehouses, right? And that there's no cages, right? The robots are moving around,
Right.
people move around. So those require a lot of safety to make sure they can stop if there's a human or an object that they might run into, right? So there's actually standards that are tracked by the industry. So these robot manufacturers are providing these overall safety solutions so they actually work with these environments, right? So there's different levels that you look at safety certification. So that's really important. But if I was
That
starting
is.
out
Thank
from
you.
scratch, yeah, and if I'm going to build a factory from scratch and I'm going to do it fully automated, that's one thing. But if I have a factory today, how do I go about automating? I think that's a lot of people's concerns, right? I talked to a number of
Right.
people, they're saying, hey, I run a factory, I'm thinking about automation. What should I do? Well, I say, well, you're not going to fully automate your plant tomorrow, right? So no, not going to happen. So what most people have today are forklifts, right? Forklifts are almost in every factory you see, and forklifts,
Mhm.
majority of forklifts today are being driven by humans, right? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of potential hazards. They can crash into things. They, get distracted. So I think before, if you fully automate, which we're doing with a lot of our customers, is doing fully automated forklifts. But I think there's an interim step. You can also have, I would say, visual understanding on these forklifts to help guide humans. So we have sensors that are being used in some of these our customers that give alerts. So if I'm driving a forklift and I unfortunately don't pay attention, I'm about to run into something, it would give a flash and maybe even stop the forklift, right? So those are things that are, I would say, interim step for both safety and semi-automation. So that's what I would look at in terms of how do I slowly automate my factory that becomes more efficient, right? So look at areas that are either not efficient or having a lot of problems or having a lot of safety issues. So you can actually automate that. And then you look at more automation in terms of logistics and supply chain. And that's where you want to bring in
Mm-hmm.
a solution provider that will provide a robot kind of solution for you. So anyway, not sure if that
Yeah,
helps.
no, that's a great point, Mark, because or forklift accidents happen a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think people are quite aware of how many workman's comp claims are out there.
I think you're exactly
Forklift forklift accidents. I don't have any stats on that, but that would be interesting. I don't know if you have any stats on that, but that
no,
would
anecdotally I've heard a number of stories, but yeah, I don't have the stats on the top of my head.
yeah, I'll have to look into that maybe for this episode. But yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, you bring up a really good point about implementing automation for existing brownfield sites as well, Mark, because that is a big challenge that I think companies have when they're looking at AI and they're looking at how do we implement AI. They kind of have the same struggle with robotics, right? So, from your perspective and expertise, what are your top three tips for manufacturers preparing
Yeah.
to kind of meet this new idea of the people technology convergence?
Right. I think the first thing I mentioned just briefly was really understanding the true costs. I
Hmm.
mean, you obviously know what your operating expenses are, your headcount expenses are, what it takes in terms of your supply chains and logistics. You look at that, and then what I would do is kind of, look at three or four vendors that could provide enhanced solutions, right? So if I'm going to automate something, what do I want to automate? Do I want to automate my kind of logistics management? Do I want to look at automating my inventory tracking? What one or two areas I would start with a pilot and focus on one area that I think are causing me a problem that I could be much more efficient. So, like I said, talk to three or four vendors that provide these solutions and then do a small pilot with them to see if it actually works and improves your efficiency. And you'll uncover a lot of things, right? You'll uncover what's the back end plug into my systems, right? I'm sure they have software solutions that work today. Does this new provider plug into it, or do you have to learn a whole new tool set, right? So, and people kind of forget that's not an easy process, right? So,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
one is the act of working with humans within a factory, and two is working with an administrator of how to actually service this information, right? So that's the first thing I would look at. The second one is, when you look at the back end systems, does that actually impact your suppliers as well? So not just your factory, but how does that actually go back to your supply chain, right? So that makes sure that you have that, I would say, software tracking that goes not only within your warehouse, but also to your supply chain to make sure that is an easy flow. I think that's really important. And the last one, which I think is the one of the most important, is that we talked about is safety, right? When I bring in a new system, how to ensure that safety is there so I don't incur new accidents. So if you're going to do a automated forklift or semi-automatic forklift, is that going to help? And how is it going to help? So those are key things, right? One, understand the true costs. Two, make sure your backend systems are fully integrated or understand the true costs to integrate it. And three is make sure that the provider you choose can actually provide a good safety solution.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, those are great tips. Do you think that there's any pattern or any commonality with like one thing over the other when you're looking at solutions?
I think it's very dependent on what you're looking to do, right? So if it's the easiest way, if I just want to semi-automate a forklift, you're going to add some sensors, you're going to make sure you're working with the provider. It's going to enhance that hopefully safety and less accidents. So that's an easier solution. You're not plugging into back end, you're doing alerts that help that driver. If you're doing a complete overhaul of your inventory management solution, that's much more kind of process oriented, a lot more back
Right.
end understanding, a lot of the kind of integration within your kind of whole flow. So, how do the humans work with it on the factory? How do humans work with it on the administrative level? How do you actually work with the right vendor? So that's a much more, I would say, complex and integrated process, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it
That's going to
varies
affect your
depending on the
entire.
complexity of what you're trying to do.
Right. That's, yeah.
But I've seen some really good providers where they just provide like a robot. That's not even a robot. They provide an inventory management system, and it happens to have a robot that tracks it, right? So you pay for their
Mm.
service. You don't really buy the robots, right? That's a lot of, I see that a lot of cases, right? So it's kind of a robot as a service because you don't want to
Interesting.
be in the robot. You don't want to be in the robot maintenance unless you're a huge factory. But if you're a smaller factory, you want to just have a service that provides that enhanced solution for you, right?
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I could see that for sure. When you're looking at implementing AI and more technological solutions, I guess also not only like the way that humans are going to work, but also like what skills they're going to need. Right? Is that kind of a part of what?
And it's if you're let's take it from first the administrative perspective, right? That's using AI to enhance kind of your access to information and actions, right? End of the day, is AI going to improve your efficiency? Well, one, do you get faster alerts or better alerts? Two, do you actually get much more relevant data to make good decisions? And that's what AI should do for you, right? If you're going to implement a back-end solution that's going to allow you to do better, more efficient decisions, right? Find a better supplier, find a better supply chain, et cetera. Have a better kind of optimization on your inventory management or your flow in the manufacturing process. Those are all things that AI could help you. If you're a factory worker, then how do I work with robots in a way that, is sophisticated?
Mm,
Do I need to understand AI? No, I think you need to understand how that robot's going to help you as a worker, right? And then do you work
right.
with that, right? Depending on that environment. So that's going to be really important for the factory kind of management to say, this is how, our team is going to work with a new team of robots, right? And it really depends on what you're implementing.
Right. And that's really kind of the perspective that I was looking for too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank
I
you.
think I think to say that, I'm a factory worker, you have to understand how AI works. I think it's kind of a daunting task because it's,
Hmm.
new technology. I think it's more important to say this is how this service is going to help you as a person, right? And that's something that you need to really look at from a management perspective. Why am I bringing these robots into my factory? How is this going to help, the workers or not? I would say you have to be upfront with them of what's happening. Will it replace some of the potential jobs? Probably. Will it enhance and help the workers in a lot of cases? I think yes, for sure. So
So quick follow up, because I do think that your perspective is so good on this. But, if you are working, like if you are a frontline worker, right, and you're working on the floor in a
yeah,
manufacturing plant and
yeah,
you're the person that is, maybe I agree. I think AI is too much for any one person to try. I feel like that is an unattainable skill set insofar as understanding the exact how it works, right? But if you are thinking about automation and AI and what the impact is going to be and how you're going to transition your own career, right? How do you develop true job security?
that's a good question. I mean, interesting kind of perspective. When I travel a lot, I take Uber or Lyft, right? And I always ask the question to them. It's like, are you worried that like a Waymo or even Uber are going to take over your job, right? And most 9 out of 10 times they say, yeah, I'm very concerned, right? Because this is my livelihood, or a lot of times it's supplementing my other job. So if it's going to be fully automated, what am I going to do? So that's a clear, I would say, concern of those type of people. So if you look at factory workers, I'm sure it's a number one concern. You can bring this robot to replace my job, right? That's the first thing
Yeah.
that they're right. So I think in some cases it may be the case where it's a lot of redundant kind of work. It could easily be replaced. The key thing is where it's much more of a skilled level type of position. I think it's much harder to do, right? And I think it requires that management understanding of how you motivate your workers with the efficiencies that kind of robotics and automation can bring to the table. And it's going to be a hard position. It's going to be hard not only for management, but obviously very hard for the factory workers to embrace this new technology in a way that they feel comfortable. So I think it's really important to be upfront of what this solution is going to do.
I think the hardest part is the career pathing, and I think you're right, because if you don't know what the solution is there to do, then there's no way you can career path that. There's no way you can say,
That's right.
okay, well, we need you to upskill in this specific area, and then that's going to continue to drive value for your role here in the company, which is honestly what your employer is going to say, right?
I know.
So, I think that's kind of where we get lost though and I guess that's like a concern of mine, because I do see this future, Mark, where we don't, we're not going to need a lot of unskilled labor. You know what I mean? Like we're going to transition from, we've had 500 employees or plus here at this plant to like, we have specialized employees.
Yeah, I think it's going to take longer in a lot of cases than most people realize. It does take a lot of time. I know a number of large factories that we're working with today that they had these high desirability to convert all their factories to be fully automated. And that was probably 7 years ago when we first started talking to them. And it's only now that they're starting to implement a little more of a scalable program. But they thought they were going to happen in the first 1 or 2 years. Right, so their for 1 or 2 year estimate took about 7 years to actually implement, and it's still not even close to being fully out there. But 10 years from today, will the world look totally different from a factory automation perspective? I would say absolutely. Just the way things are going. It's I
think it already does.
Yeah, it's
years.
Exactly. So yeah, it's happening. Is it the right career path just to be, a skilled factory worker doing, assembly line work? I don't know. I think it's a very hard one to look at, right? And you have to be upfront about, what's my career, right?
Dude.
And I don't have the answer, to be honest with you, right? Because it's, as we see the automation happening in a lot of cases, it's the trade-offs are the ROI, right? Is it make more efficiency for me to invest a lot of money up front to make sure then I can run the factory 24/7, right? That's the trade-off.
Yeah. But I do think what you said was helpful. I do think you've got to think about what the solution is and then work backwards, reverse engineer it.
Exactly.
So, to take this concept of engineering and apply it to your HR, right? And reverse engineer what that trajectory looks like.
Depending on, the factory worker, it's, are you unionized or not? But, you have good support. I would just be open and ask, what is this solution going to do? And how is it going to work with us? Right? And then if you're had a good manager, they should actually be honest and tell you what's happening, right? To whatever they can.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, and again, thank you. I know that's kind of off track of what our conversation is really focused on here today. I do wonder about that though. So, and I think that other people do too. So I thought I would throw it out there.
Yep.
But, of all of the applications and implementation studies that you've had with RealSense AI, what are some of your favorite examples of how this type of technology has improved both productivity and performance of the people that adopt it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And our technology is, I would say, is an interesting platform to do a lot of really creative and innovative things that some we thought were going to happen. And a lot of cases, we didn't have any clue this could happen. So I'll give you a couple examples. The ones that are more obvious are if I can, provide a visual cortex to a robot, what can it do? Well, it can see the world, it can navigate, it can understand people like ourselves, it can see objects and can manipulate those objects in ways that, we can do as humans, or actually even more so. So one is we see a lot of solutions, like I said, in factory and in manufacturing, where they're doing automated mobile robotics to move around very large loads, right? Like heavy pellet moving. So that's logistics within factories. Another customer, so you can go to our website, it's realsenseai.com. You'll see a lot of case studies. One case study is with Simbi. They actually do a robot as a service. It's a inventory kind of robot. A lot of our cameras, they go in stores. When people are actually in the stores, you go to a grocery store and they want to see the inventory, right, of all the different goods, and they can actually do it in real time. And they made the robot kind of cute, where kids can go up to it and they don't feel intimidated. And the robot's fairly light, so it's not going to hurt anyone really. So the kids actually play with it. it's a good, nice thing. So they're making that much more, I would say, inclusive as a solution and working with humans in the store, right? So it's a very nice implementation. Another one which is really interesting. This is kind of the one that we sorry about that. We didn't even envision this. So they're using our cameras to perceive the world in 3D to see the world, and these are for people who are really either blind or really can't see very well, right? So now imagine if you're near blind or blind, you're walking around, you can navigate the world. But now if I get sensory perception, and basically we're showing you the world using sound. So this company took our sensors, they mounted it to kind of like a glasses, even though you can't see through, and then basically they're giving audio sensory perception to when you're close to objects. So if I'm walking and a car is close to me, I'll start feeling vibrations saying, "Whoa, I gotta stop." So this is amazing solution where you're seeing the world in 3D, where the camera is, and it's taking that visual data, converting it into audio alerts and feedback, so you can actually navigate the world, even if you're blind. I think that's one of the really cool use cases that we didn't even imagine, right? And I see you're like, really?
That is really cool.
That's really good. And there's other cases because we see the world and the world's in 3D, we understand the volume of different things. So one technology actually using for fitting clothes, right? So Fendi, they did a solution, Fit 3D, they did a solution with Fendi where you're looking at kind of different designer clothes that you can wear. Another one is actually you looking at the food volume. So looking at making sure there's the right level of food and it's not getting old, there's hot enough, etc. But it's it's in the volume of the trays, right? So basically,
yes,
that's
I would like one of those in my house. Yes. I keep asking for this, and people are like, "I don't think that's going to happen, Ann."
We'll get you one.
Thank you. Thank you.
So those are a lot of them, but a lot of them are, and the ones that we've seen probably the last 2 or 3 years is really the humanoid robotics using our kind of sensors to understand the world and see the world. So that's huge, right? So if you look at all the humanoids that are being built out kind of around the world, majority are using our sensors as their visual cortex and understanding, right? And the use cases there are great, right? Hopefully, we'll see. I would say it's a huge opportunity that's still nascent market, right? But there's many, I would say hundreds of companies that are building humanoid robotics today.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a thing. So it's the popular thing. Yeah, no, I think that is amazing what you're doing for blind people. This is really cool. I mean, this is going to open up a whole level. I mean, and the possibilities of, making work more adaptable alone are really cool there.
Yeah.
And then, I think we were talking in a previous conversation at some point, and I think, you were telling me about Tally. Is that right?
That's the one. That's the Symbi robot, right? Yeah.
So Tally and I have a very good relationship, Mark. And I think we had talked about this before. And for those that are listening that you're like, what is she talking about? So Tally is my homie, first of all. Wow. Is my friend first. I want to clarify. But Tally roams around our local BJ's wholesale store here in Madison. And Tally will go aisle by aisle and basically does inventory.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and calculates all that. But, Tally is really fun. My kiddo loves Tally because we just kind of go. We just go to BJ's and we talk to Tally. That's,
They did a great job, right? They did a really great solution, right? To make it kind of, disarming, friendly, and it's doing its job.
Exactly. It's exactly. Well, first of all, it's doing its job, which is the most important thing. But then it's also very friendly, customer friendly, kid friendly, all these things that robots have never had an opportunity to be before.
I'm not sure. So one of my first jobs when I was in high school, I had to do, I worked at a grocery store, and it's like, you had to do stocking and you had to do all the inventory. It was the worst part of the job. You had to count how many cans there were. You had to figure out if the stocking level was correct. It's like, I wish someone just do this automatically. So
I feel that way about my own pantry.
Oh, that's why. So you want your Tally in your pants?
Yes, I want Tally to just come live with me, Mark. Can we?
Well, I'll set you up with their contact over there.
Thank you. I appreciate
that would be an interesting podcast, right? Ann with Tally, just a new one. A day in the life of Ann and Tally.
It would be. And like, well, I'd even let Phoenix, I would just film Phoenix and Tally because they would be far more interesting than me probably. But yeah. And for those that have not met Tally yet, first of all, you're missing out. But Tally makes these little beeping noises, but they're like not like normal robot automation noises. They're like high pitched and like different, like like decimals. Like I don't even know, but it's cute and it's a lot of fun.
See, it is.
Yeah, well, you all have done a great job too because I can absolutely trust that Tally robot to stop, anytime that I'm in the store and like I accidentally run up on it or Phoenix, is like, oh, Tally, it stops every time. And that's important. So probably my own personal favorite.
I like it.
Success
It's great.
Story. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say go to our website and check out some others too that they're probably similar but very different. So
love it. Well, Mark, I appreciate your time here today to sit down and have this conversation with me. For those that are interested in learning more about the really awesome solutions that RealSense AI are providing, or maybe they just want to connect with you, what is a good point of contact?
I think the best way to see what we're doing is just go to our website. It's realsenseai.com. Pretty straightforward. If you want to contact me, best way to do that, ping the website and just, I think there's a sales thing and say, hey, I want to contact Mark and I'll get back to you. So
awesome. Well, perfect. Well, thank you again, Mark, for being here and joining us today. I really appreciate the time and the conversation. And for those listening to the episode today, we really appreciate you as well. Make sure you connect with Mark, and we will see you all next week on Workforce 4.0.
Thanks, Ann. My pleasure.